Hello. Thank you so much for joining the Willpower podcast show today. Today, I am fortunate enough to have Kathryn with us today. She's a dear friend of mine, and she's also a realtor that we work with. And also, today we're going to talk about her journey, because she's also started as an influencer in the local area. So I can't wait for you to hear this conversation, because she shares some things through her story that I feel like are really going to be powerful to help you to not give up. Kat, thank you so much for being on the Willpower podcast for the second time.
Yes.
Everybody listening right now, we had some technical difficulties, but you won't get to hear any of that. If you joined the live, you maybe heard it and saw it actually. But anyways, Kat, thank you so much for being on here. As we were kind of talking, I was saying that, we met through real estate.
Yep.
And one of the things that I love having people come on from all different walks of life. And one of the things that last time that we were filming content together at one of your listings, we kind of got to talking a little bit of like the behind the scenes per se of what you do with social media, because that's one of the things that it's very noticeable whenever you meet people and maybe they follow you on Instagram or whatever. So you would consider yourself like a local influencer, correct?
Yes, correct.
So when did that start?
So basically, I think it was around 2014, I kind of started to dive into the Instagram thing. I had been following a few girls, like fashion girls on Instagram, and that's when it was just kind of getting started with people starting to post their fashion looks on Instagram. So I kind of started then, but I think it took me about 2 years to then get with the company that was at that time called Reward Style. They're now LiketoKnow.it. And that's kind of where you get into the affiliate linking, so that then you can make a commission off of the clicks and the sales.
Gotcha. So whenever you started in 2014, you started it like in hopes that you were gonna
that was my goal.
Get paid doing it, pretty much.
That was my goal. I saw these other girls, they started working with Reward Style, so I was like, I'm intrigued by that. That's something I think I want to try to get into, because at that time, which I believe it's still the same way, you have to get accepted. So you have to apply, and they kind of go in and look at your profile, look at, how much you're posting and if it's true to the brands that they work with, and then they will accept you.
Gotcha. So you're also a real estate agent.
Yes,
that's how we met.
Yes.
So I love, if you've gotten to know me, and I love numbers, I love analytics, I love all that stuff. So one of the craziest stats that I've heard on this past year is that currently, we've seen that the current real estate market the last couple of years has been crazy, right?
Yeah.
And good. It was good for us. It was crazy. I feel like it's kind of flip-flopped. Whenever COVID happened, a lot of people were going through hard times.
Right.
People in the real estate industry, they were going through very good times.
Good times for sure.
Now, normal people that outside of the real estate industry, they're thriving back.
Right.
COVID, COVID's gone.
Right.
And then, or for the most part, and now us, we're like, oh shoot, rates are going up, inventory's so low, all these things. So there's currently 1.4 million realtors in the nation.
Oh, wow.
And 800,000 of them haven't closed one single deal year to date.
No way. Wow.
Yep. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is because if, anybody listening out there, real estate can be a very good career, whether you're on the realtor side or the lender side, but it takes a lot of hard work, and it's not easy to make it out there.
Not.
So I'm curious to ask you, what are your thoughts? I would think that being an influencer and getting paid for it would be even harder. So what are your thoughts on you don't have to have any stats, but how hard is it?
Yeah, no, it definitely can be hard as well. And I think the thing is that, starting out, you're kind of not making any money.
Yeah.
You kind of have to build up your brand to then prove yourself, to then get those collaboration deals or sponsorships. So in the beginning, it definitely can seem like quite the struggle, and kind of like, why am I doing this? If I'm not making any money right away, why am I doing this? But that's the thing. You just have to be consistent. You have to stick with it, and then it will come if you can stick with it. And so it's kind of just working through that. But that's why I'm just about kind of diversifying and having several different things going on.
Love that.
So that's why I got into that. And what's funny is I actually got into it thinking I was wanting to start a boutique. So I've always been in the retail space. That's what my degree is, apparel merchandising. So I always thought, oh, I'm going to open a boutique. And so that's kind of where Around Town Babe started, my Instagram. We actually were going to do at that time, I think in 2014, that's kind of when food trucks and like this whole like boutique in a truck thing kind of started to happen. And I was like, I'm interested in that. So that's actually where we came up with the name Around Town Babe.
Because you were supposed to be.
I was thinking, oh, I'm going to be, driving a truck all around. But at that time too, I had just had my first kid. And so I kind of started this whole like stay at home mom, like work life. And that's where I was just wanting to build a job that would work with being at home.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what also spun me into it. But I did see these other girls starting to get these collaboration deals. And that's where I know that's where the real money is being made, is when you're getting those deals. So I was definitely wanting to work up to that.
Yeah. And, this is the first time I'm hearing about the name behind Around Town Babe. But in a sense, even though you're not going around town literally with a little truck and everything, what people don't realize about social media, and the biggest reason of why I've got into content creating at the very beginning of the year to further my business is I once heard an interview with a top producer that lives in Boston. And he talked about, I remember, going through Instagram or Facebook and then seeing one of my, not necessarily close friends, but people that I knew, and they had just closed on their first home. Yeah. And they didn't use me. Oh. And I would get so upset.
Yeah.
And he said, but then I realized, and that I could relate to that because that had happened to me before. Yeah. And he said, but then I realized I should be upset at myself because how do I know that this person knew that I was a lender?
Yes.
Right. So then he said, then I started spending all this money on marketing and being on like billboards and being pretty much omnipresent, like being there whenever you're actually not.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing that I've truly seen. Like, I can't tell you how many times like I'll go to a coffee and people are like, I feel like I already know you and I've never met them before.
Right.
So it's funny that it's like, you had a certain idea of like why the name, but you're probably like, you probably walk into places and people are like, that's Kat.
Yeah.
And then they've never met you.
That definitely has happened. And so I'm like, oh, wow, that is interesting. But I mean, so it works with the name because I'm kind of like around town.
That's awesome. I love it. So let me ask you this because I'm curious. So how long did it take you? How many followers do you have right now? Like 50 something?
Yeah, I'm just around 50,000.
Okay. So for 2014, do you remember the month that you started?
It probably was in the fall.
In the fall, so like let's say August or something.
Sure, yeah.
So how long did it take you to get any actual momentum going?
I feel like it was really those first 2 years and until about 2016, because I think that's when I then did get with Reward Style, the company at that time, and I got accepted. I was able to link things. That's when you can like link your items that you're wearing and then share the link, and then if people click it and purchase something, you make a commission. So I feel like that's kind of when I started to notice momentum. And then I just really started to build off of that. I mean, Instagram, the algorithm, all the things you do
changes all the time.
Completely always changing. Yeah. And so there's just been different ways that I've built that over the years. But that's the thing. I think people see that number and they're like, oh, wow, that's such a big number. But the thing is I've been doing it for so many years now. I didn't build that in 1 year. You know what I mean? Like that took so many years to build. And then of course, some girls that have been doing it that long, they're even on another level because they just really focused on that. I've just never, I went through phases of being really about the number and trying to grow my number. But it's a lot. It would be a lot of work.
One of the things that I personally have to keep reminding myself over and over again is that comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. Comparison 100%. Is the thief of joy. And I've experienced that in my life in all different aspects of life. Yeah. And the reason I'm asking you these questions is because I was a judge at a beauty pageant like a couple of months ago, and actually had the girl that won here last week. Had a great conversation with her, and one of the judges there was a girl that used to do beauty pageants, and then she's like an influencer now. She has like 130,000 followers, and I had a great conversation with her. And one of the things that she said, this number doesn't mean anything. She goes, I have like most of the people that I hang out with, they have like million followers, 800,000 followers, all this stuff. And he goes, but the biggest thing that can help you right now is getting through your head that you're never going to arrive. Right.
No.
So when I've had an Instagram since 2011. And when I started content creating, it was in March of this year. I had like a little bit over 1,000 followers or something. And I kept putting all this content out and just, there's sometimes that I would be like, man, is this working?
Right.
Is this working?
What's the point?
Yeah. And then kind of like you're saying when you started, and then I'm like, man, if only I had like at least 10,000 followers, like I think that I would be able to have some, credibility and all this stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't even think it would happen this fast, but not this past Saturday before, finally hit my 10,000 followers.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
I was happy for like, not even a minute.
Right.
And I go, okay, when is the 20K
then
coming in?
And you want to go next. Yeah. You got to keep going bigger.
Yeah. So I feel that was the first time that I truly experienced that.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of most of the time experience that before you actually like, no matter how many times people tell you over and over again.
Yeah.
So, but how long did it take you? Because I see so many people in our industry that they're seeing what I'm doing and they're like, I want to do that and all this stuff, but they don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the consistency.
And they don't realize how much work it is.
Exactly.
That's the thing. They're just like, oh, you just throw something up on your phone and it's no big deal. But it's like, no, it actually can take a lot of work just to make a small amount of content. So, but that's the thing with Instagram it's already changed so much, but back then that was the main goal, was to get to 10K, because that's at that time whenever then they added the swipe up feature.
Okay.
So in order to get the swipe up feature, you had to have 10,000 followers. So that was always like the ultimate goal, because if you were wanting to share your link, obviously you're going to get more clicks on your link if you can, share it there. Otherwise you were constantly directing people to your profile and saying like, click my link in my profile. But it was, after that, you kind of just don't care, because then now, especially, everybody can get the link now, so it doesn't matter how many followers you have at all.
But, 6 months seemed like a long time for me, even though it's really like
that's a great amount of time, I think, to get to 10K.
Yeah. So my question for you is, and I don't think you answered it, how long did it take you to finally get that swipe up feature or whatever?
To be honest, I can't even remember. I used to keep track of all that, but now I've like completely let it go. But I think it may have taken me like those 2 years to get
2 years.
Yeah, at that time.
And I thought that's what you said at the very beginning, because you said from 2014 and 2016 is whenever I finally partner up with somebody. So like if it would have taken me 2 years to even try to feel like I got any momentum, it would have seemed like, oh my gosh, like, so many people quit. So how many people, going back to the same question I just asked you, how many people that are currently trying to right now, not back then, or even back then, however you want to say it, do you think maybe try to do this and then didn't succeed?
I don't know.
You have 100 people.
I feel like
you have 100 people. How many of them actually make it to make any money at all?
I don't know. Maybe, a handful, 25 people, maybe like a quarter of the people, they would do it. Maybe
that's higher than what I
would
thought.
think. I guess it just depends. Maybe only 10. I don't know really, but I just feel like to some, it could feel like it's so much harder now to grow. Whereas back when I started, I feel like it was almost easier in a sense, because it was just, I don't know, the way Instagram worked then. You could, add the hashtag or you just collaborate with somebody, which now I think it's still great. Like we're doing this right now.
Yeah.
And then we can each share each other.
Yeah.
I think that's great. But now it just seems like, everything changed to video. So now it's like you're doing great. You're doing all the reels and promoting that. And that's probably what's helped you grow so fast, because you're working the system. And that's the thing. It's a game. You got to play the game. And so if the Instagram game right now is video, you post all video, you should grow. But and then I just haven't gotten full blown behind that. But
how did you always try to keep up? Because from 2014 to like, when did you say was the last year that you were like fully serious on this. I guess it leads to the next question. When did you and how did you become a realtor?
A realtor? Well, so I did the flip house. I started doing a flip house project, and I really honestly just thought, oh, I think I see this in my future. I want to do flip houses more. So I just thought maybe being a realtor or just having that license and then having access to MLS, that would help me to do more flip houses. So that was my thought process at that time.
So you just got your license?
I actually did not even, I didn't even think I would full blown become a realtor. But then of course,
and what year was this?
Timing wise, that was 2020 that I got my license.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So it was like into 2020, and then it was just like boom, out of the gate, all this stuff started happening. And so I was like, I guess I'm gonna just lean into the realtor thing then. And then especially because in 2021, I mean, it was kind of hard to find investment properties because everything was selling so high. So I mean, I haven't done another flip house yet, but now with the market changing, I'm kind of seeing some more of that. I really would like to pick up another project like that, but that's really what got me into becoming a full-blown realtor.
So was it from 2014 to 2020 that you were doing like that full-time per se?
Yeah, pretty much. I like focused strictly on Instagram and just posting fashion content and building that my brand and then getting collaboration deals. So at that time, I felt like what was really important was if you could post something and get it reposted by a bigger brand. So that's where I feel like a lot of my bigger following, I would get reposted by these bigger accounts. And then that's what would help me grow substantially.
And in those 6 years that you were like full blown all into it, what were you doing to try to keep up with like all the changes that they were doing?
That's what you just have to follow what Instagram is putting out. And honestly, at that time, it was like geotagging, hashtags.
So all of it has changed.
All of it. And
when
now
did
I don't even know
become
that.
A thing?
That's the thing. I was thinking about that too. And I feel like it was right around
Snapchat era because they took that
then
from
you went
Snapchat.
through Snapchat because I remember I started posting on there because I think Snapchat is almost like you could link something quicker than Instagram. I can't remember, but definitely went through the Snapchat phase, and now I'm like barely ever on that. But I think it was like 2017 that Instagram stories started.
And not like nobody really wanted to use it because it was kind of
because everybody was on Snapchat. So then now they're like, oh, Instagram's copying Snapchat.
Yeah.
But then Instagram didn't have all the filters, and everybody loved using all the goofy filters on Snapchat. So
I think
then
that's still
like,
the thing with Snapchat. That's why they're alive right now, right? Because they still have like all those cool filters and everything.
Yes, like I said, I don't really do Snapchat anymore. It's just too many things to keep up with. You got to pick your lane and focus on your lane, and that's, I don't know. So
how has it been this last almost 3 years?
Yeah.
Right? Or no,
2.
Up to 2 full years.
This is my my anniversary is coming up. Yeah.
Congrats, by the way.
Thanks.
So how has the transition to getting into real estate from what you were doing?
I mean, it's been great. I definitely feel like it's been helpful that I've already built up my Instagram brand. So I definitely have gotten, clients from Instagram. But also this past year is just definitely, my first year was just, I never expected going through all the things I went through. Like I thought, oh, I'm just going to learn the basics and not really see anything too dramatic. But that was quite different. And I just felt like it was almost like I got thrown to the fire and just had to learn as I go, So there was just so many crazy deals that happened. But now with this year, I've definitely slowed down. So that's been quite a bit of a change.
Would you say that a lot of your momentum at the beginning in real estate was, or how much, or did any of your business, and if so, how much came from like your already online presence?
It was only like 20%. It wasn't a ton. Definitely like friends and family were the main clientele like the first year. So, that was really it.
So I would think, that it would be a little bit more just because I feel like, and I talked to my wife about this too, because we have other friends that literally it's so weird because, you and I aren't that old, but I feel that, we come from like being in like, let's say middle school or something that the people that people like looked up to and stuff were people that were in movies and now like I remember being at dinner with some friends and somebody walked in. I couldn't tell you who it was, but somebody here, I guess that's like a big influencer.
Yeah.
And then the friend that we were having
Were you at Summit Club?
Yeah. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
so-and-so. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, so that's why I would think that, because people are like, wanting to help you and get to know you better and all this stuff. So that's crazy.
Definitely. Well, and like you're saying, I think it's promotion. And I think I've kind of like been trying to figure out this whole Instagram thing. And now I have this fashion Instagram account, or, it's mainly been fashion lifestyle. And I think it's just trying to figure out, how can I go about, like, is this what people really want to see? Do they want to see more real estate here? Or do I need to keep it separate? And so I think it's definitely been like trying to figure out a line of, how do I put it all together and blend it together? But I think definitely it's just goes back to promotion and really like putting it out there every day. I'm a realtor.
Yeah. And I think that is where, I mean, at least if it was me, there would be potentially some fear in the back of your head of like, am I going to lose this audience? Because, it's like I'm following an account because they're,
they always followed and saw my fashion posts. So now it's like, if I just automatically start switching and sharing like all houses or real estate,
they're going to be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. This isn't what I'm here
for. It's like going to a really good sushi restaurant and that you love, and then you go and they're like, we're serving Mexican tonight or this whole week.
Exactly.
And people are like, okay, we're going to go to a different sushi restaurant.
Exactly. So it's definitely been kind of like something I'm trying to figure out. But yeah, so probably if I was on there more being like, I'm a realtor, hey, come work with me.
So this is a question I have for you is, what is it that you look for in a friend when it comes to finding people genuine, especially that you're meeting like online?
Yeah.
Just because I feel that in this, momentum that I've had, I've gotten some like weird messages and all these people and everything. And I'm just like, I don't know how sometimes you can tell when people are being genuine.
Are they real? I've had that. That's happened to me.
But
and
it's
especially because you're online, so you get a message, and especially me being an influencer, say I'm sharing about something and I'll get a random message and it's almost like they're criticizing me, but then I don't know if they're being for real or are they just, that's just how they're communicating. Like, I don't know. So I've struggled with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've definitely, like recently, like I met Lauren, you work out with her husband. And so I met her on Instagram.
Oh yeah. Lauren. Yeah.
And so we met on Instagram though. And then, but I think meeting in person definitely is what does it for me. I mean, it's one thing to meet somebody online, but I feel like until you actually like see that person in person, that's whenever I feel like then you can build like a true connection. So it's like we had just started talking on Instagram and then had to meet up. She like bought something from me. And so we met up for 2 seconds and had like a quick chat. And I was like, I really like this person. Yeah. And so then we've already gone to brunch and now we're going to go to coffee again next week. And so, I mean, I think it's just that genuine connection you can make in person.
One of my favorite quotes that I always remind myself, and part of the reason why I love doing these podcasts is not only to learn from the person, and then hopefully some of the listeners can take one or two things either that you've shared or that I've shared, but it's because it's very rare for us to have these type of conversations nowadays, because I mean your phone is sitting right there. I don't know if you have heard it buzz or if it has or not, but it's like I was, before we jumped on here, I told you that I was listening to this amazing podcast, and this guy, Colin O'Brady, I believe his name is, wrote a book that says this called the 12-hour walk, and it talks about how going on a 12-hour walk by yourself with no phone, no music, nothing, and it's like super super tough, especially where we live now. So it's being able to have a conversation with somebody without interruptions,
distractions.
Yes. So
no, I feel for that though. It's like, I think that's what really drew me to wanting to become a realtor as well. It's like you're doing this Instagram thing, and if you're only doing that and you're constantly just talking to your phone all day, I think that's something that I started to crave, that I was missing, was that like in person meeting new people. Like I love meeting new people. And so that was something I think that drew me to it. I was like, I just kind of like need to switch things up and like get out of my own space and put myself out there. And so that's something I've really enjoyed, because I've met, and not even just working with people, like as their realtor, but just meeting people like as lenders, as other realtors. So I just really enjoyed meeting
and it's
people in the industry.
It's so good that you really recognize that, because no matter where you are in life, whether you feel that you're in a good place, or people think that you're in a good place, or people think you're in a bad place, or you really actually are in a bad place. I think that a lot of people out there have to be very careful where we are currently at in the world. Because of COVID, a lot of people had to work from home.
True.
And now, I mean, there was, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day that I'm like, what are we going to do with all these commercial buildings if nobody's working in offices,
true.
right?
I didn't think about that.
And then, we have a region meeting once a month, and our processors work from home, and they, one of them came in, and then she was like, this is the first time I've been out of my house since last time I was here.
Oh, wow.
Like I've had actual like interactions with other people other than my family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are you not going crazy?
Right.
And I feel like that's one person of many, many people that just don't realize that.
I actually had that thought like just the other day, because everything's just gotten so easy. You literally don't have to leave your house. Like, I honestly hate going to the grocery store. Like, it's just not one of my favorite things, because I really don't like to cook. And so I have become obsessed with Instacart.
Yeah.
I Instacart like everything. I mean, I could do my dog food. I could do my, all my groceries. I mean, anything. Then you have DoorDash. So it's like you don't even have to leave to go get like a meal. So it's like all those things, you literally don't have to leave your house, and it's almost scary, because it's almost like it's causing this like social anxiety in some sense, because then you're just not leaving your home. So then you don't really have to communicate with people. So it is kind of interesting.
It is.
And worrisome.
And I think that, I don't have any stats on this, but I think we all know, anybody listening, you and I know that America, and probably the world overall, but I think specifically in America, there is this big problem with depression.
Yes. Huge.
And I think that if people don't really realize that, like you did, like you're like, life's great. I'm an influencer, da-da-da. But when's the last time I actually had a conversation with somebody?
Yeah. Or met a new person person, not just on my phone.
But if people don't come into their own realization, like going back to the number of followers you have doesn't mean a thing. And you can tell people over and over and over again, and until they experience it for themselves, they're not really going to believe it.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the same thing. You can tell people kind of that same thing over and over, like, hey, get out, meet new people.
Yes.
And sometimes it's too late when people realize that.
True.
So going back to really talking about how that's one of the reasons why I love, having these conversations, is because one of the things that I keep reminding myself is you haven't met all the people that you're going to love yet.
Yeah. That's true.
You haven't met the people that you're going to be really good friends with.
Right.
People that are single out there, they haven't potentially met their spouse. It's the person that they're going to share the best moments with, it's the person that they're going to be with for the rest of their life, And so going back to Lauren, that's how I met Lauren. Through Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And what's funny is what connected us is she's a realtor as well.
Yes.
And, we went out to lunch and everything. What was crazy is we connected on Instagram. And then what motivated me to, get together was like, she's a realtor, I'm a lender. Let's go. I'd love to do business with her. And then, not even, 6 months later or so, I'm on my second competition with her husband, and I became really good friends with her husband.
Yeah, I can see you guys clicking really well.
Yeah,
I've never met him, but I know he works out like you do.
So it's like, you don't know what that next person is going to bring to you.
That is so true. Crazy. I would have assumed you met him before you met her.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
But if you don't have constant reminders, and if you're not like, aware.
Yeah.
None of that stuff is ever going to click. It's crazy.
I know, it is crazy. So that's the thing, though. It's like you got to be constantly putting yourself out there, because you just never know what it's going to lead to.
You have to. Going back to the market that we're in has been pretty easy the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's not very easy this year.
No.
But what you have to do is keep putting yourself out there.
Yes.
Keep putting yourself
100%.
out there.
I think so. And pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And that's been huge for me, because I definitely can't. I'm like a extrovert introvert, but I feel like there's sometimes that like I get way in my head, and I can be kind of like feeling social anxiety of some sense and not putting myself out there. But especially as a realtor, I mean, that's the only way you're going to grow your business is by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and putting yourself out there to meet people.
That's so good because I heard the other day that if you look at life and you rate it from a 1 through 10. So like if you're like, man, when I started, becoming an influencer in 2014, man, that was probably like a 1 or a 2 because I wasn't getting any momentum. I didn't know if this was really going to work.
Yeah.
Maybe your husband was like, why are you wasting so much time on that?
Oh,
like,
that
is
was
this
definitely
ever,
a huge fight.
But if it wouldn't have been for that season that you were going through a 1 or a 2,
right,
you would have never gotten to experience the 10 that you later experienced whenever you finally grew and got these deals and stuff like that. So most people are totally cool operating like at a 5.
Yeah.
Right? If you're like in a relationship, let's say that you're like, I'm not like super happy, but I don't really want to like break up and find somebody and all this stuff. So I'm good with the 5.
Right.
But then they're jealous of their girlfriend that is in love with her boyfriend or husband or whatever, has the 10, and it's like, well, hey, that person had to go through a 1.
Yeah.
So in order to be able to get those 10s, you have to be able to go through, like you said, feel uncomfortable and everything. But most people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah.
So whenever people are like, man, how's business going? And I'm like, well, honestly, I mean, it's slower than the last couple of years, but thankfully, we're doing
Can
good.
Push through it. Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that has helped me is developing my personal brand.
Yes.
78% of Americans rather do business with somebody that has a personal brand and social media presence.
Yeah.
And then so people are like, oh my gosh, like I need to do that.
Yeah.
And then they never do anything about it.
Right, 100%.
Because they don't want to put themselves, what are people going to say about me? What are,
that
all
is
this
something
stuff.
you definitely have to get over is thinking, and I think I struggle with that to this day. Like, oh, should I talk about this? Should I put this out here? Like, what are people going to think? And then especially now I have kids. So then it's like, oh no, what are like the people at the school going to think? Are there teachers watching me? Like what's happening? So that definitely goes through your head. But I think always, it's helpful. I mean, if you can like listen to your gut, and honestly, over all these years, it's even whenever my husband would be like, don't you feel like you're kind of wasting your time? We could be doing something else. It was like, there was something in the back of my head that just kept saying, just keep going. Like, just push through it. Just like, don't listen to it. Even if it's your husband, it was like, don't just follow what you know to do. Like just push through it and it will pay off in the end. And I definitely feel like I saw that, but it's
whenever I invited you over, I kind of had an idea. You were like, do you have any questions and stuff? I'm like, no, let's just have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to dive deep a little bit into your journey of, when you started and everything. But because we had never really talked about that, but I didn't really think the biggest thing that if I'm listening to this conversation is whatever you are putting all your eggs, whatever basket you're putting all your eggs into, and it just seems like it's not working out.
Right.
But you truly believe it.
Yeah.
You truly believe it. And you're putting the work in, and you're, I love this quote that says, what you constantly think about, you're going to believe in.
That's one of my favorites.
And what you're constantly believing, it's going to come to fruition.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing that I've learned from you today. It's like, it compares to anything that I've gone through in life when people are like, man, why are you doing that?
Right.
Like, why are you, all this stuff. Like even my wife, like the other day, she comes up to me and she goes, hey, I'm sorry that, cause I, as you know, I've been doing, the social media classes for like agents and stuff. And I remember when I first started, she was telling me, she goes, well, don't you want to wait till you have like a larger following? So that way, like people
credibility.
will, credibility.
Sure.
And I go, yeah, I mean, but I don't know when that's going to happen.
Right.
That could be in a year. That could be in 2 years. That could be in 4 years. Right.
Right.
And then she comes up to me. She's like, I'm sorry that I feel like me telling you that was me pretty much telling you that I didn't believe in you.
Right.
And I should have known that you were just going to kill it.
Yeah.
Like just like you put your mind into something and you go out there and execute because you just don't give up.
Right.
You don't give up, right? Like the name of the podcast, Willpower, right?
Yes,
it's like you just don't give up. And then so me hearing you say that, that's the biggest thing that I look at and I'm like, man, it's so good. It's so good to hear that.
Yeah, it's like listen to your intuition, follow your intuition. And if that's truly what you believe in, just keep going after it.
So yeah, I 100% agree. So I have one last question. And then we'll keep this within kind of our conversation. So let's say Instagram. If you had one more either post or story, the last one that you were going to post, let's say that for some reason you had to delete your account or whatever, and what you had to give to your however many followers are out there, and even past that, because let's say if it's, going back to like the algorithm and everything, if you have 200 followers and you post a reel, you could potentially reach 1 million people, because it's been,
it can go